Hi. In this video on Advanced Editor for B1 dashboards, we will look into the range filters and the filter elements. So back to the dashboard editor with our trusty sales data. Range filters and filter elements are a way to always filter data. We have seen master data filters and filters that actually just filter that specific thing, but filters is things that affect other filters in this. So in order to filter something, we need some data. So we will do that with some charts, and we'll make a quick chart of how we have sold our information over time. So let's make it into a month, year, or in order to see it a bit easier, let's take it quarter year. There we go. So range filters is a way of letting customers choose how to filter the data in a range. So dates being a good scenario on that. It can also be numbers, but dates are the most normal value. So a range filter, I tend to put it down here because it looks nice, and most other places that people use this across the web put it down here. So in order to do it, we put in the argument as stock date, and I want to put it in quarter year. And let's wait with this one a bit and let's see. So right now we're not seeing anything, but we need to put in some values. So our values could be, for example, the total, or it could be something like number on how many we have done. There can be multiple, but it's kind of normal to only have one. So you can see this more or less affects the same spike here that I have this spike here and a little spike over here. So it's the same data, just presented in different ways. I can make it a bit bigger. Normally it's quite small. But what it can do is it can go in and set these ranges on. I actually only want to see the data between Q3 2006 and Q2 2012. And the more we work around, the less data is there. And when I go in and take the spike away, they actually become big because it always takes into account the data shown right now. So you can also just press one of them and it will choose that quarter because I set it as quarter year. So that's the way you can go in and do things like this. You can choose in here how it should be represented down here. These are just with if you have stacks, so if you have multiple, you can do that. Points is default, but I mostly like the areas because you can see where it's spiked. But you can also do bars, so it actually looks a bit the same like the other one. But I tend to go with the areas part. And then they can work, and people can press like this around to figure the data. If you want to give easy ways to have periods, you can go in and press this button or right click and get some periods. So you can go in and set the different periods here, and there's different options in here. So for example, I want to have every time the last year or this year, which is 2016, and these will update on the fly automatically in the system. Or next year, doesn't really matter, it makes sense for this one, so let's get rid of that. And I can go in and set what's the default. So I can set up the default is last year, for example. So that means whenever you run the dashboard, it will actually just default to last year. Else it will actually default to the entire range normally. In order to let the customer show this, you need to go in and show caption, because then you have the button here where you can say predefined selection, and then we can quickly switch between last year and this year. Depends on the mood, on how the customer wants to work with this. Many people like to just move these around and feel the power of moving bigger and having them up and run. But it is possible to make these predefined, and they're really good for this default. So even if you don't want to show the caption in order to get the default will still help you in putting in where these last year and this year, so you can take more data but still filter down default. It of course affects other things, not just charts. It will affect every single thing you have in the system. So if you have customer groups and some totals, if I turn those around, they still also affect up here. So it's not only charts, it also affects pies and so on. Another kind of filter you can put in is the filter elements. Let me get rid of this so we just have some few things here. And the filter elements is combo box, list box, and tree view. So first let's look at combo box. So if you don't want to use such up space down here, you could, for example, go in and say the combo box, which could be at the top, and get rid of the caption, could be just the year. And then if you chose the year, let's get this out of the way because that will trump everything. So now it's just running by year, like this. So that's one way of doing things. You can go in and set that combo box up to be checkboxes. So instead you can go in and say, I want to have 2008 and 9, and say OK, and you get those two. Another type of filter element we can do is combo boxes. Sorry, not combo boxes. We call those list boxes. So list boxes can essentially do the same, just a different way of showing, the date. Just so depends, do we want to use a lot of space to give this range or not? We could do something like that, and they will now affect each other. So if I take everyone away, it doesn't make sense. If I take 2009, you can see they overlap, so every one of them should be happening. So this is 2008, 2009, this is only 2009, so it only shows 2009. Let me get rid of this so it doesn't confuse us so much, so just have it like this. And with list boxes, it can also be, need to mark it, radio button, so we can actually only choose one. And there's the option if we want to have an all value or not. So those also makes okay sense, and we can go in and add multiple dimensions to it. So for example, we could go in and say 2006 construction, 2006 distributors, and so on. It will just make all combinations that make sense. Not that often used, but it is possible. The final one we have is tree view. Easiest way to do that is just take our list view and convert it into tree view. So I don't need to drag these in. Looks the same, but as soon as we put multiple things in it, they will still become underlying values. So I can go in and say, give me everything from 2006 except the ones from high-tech customers. And that will be able to to affect that, small customers, and it will change all depending on what we need. Tree views can auto expand. It doesn't really make sense to make them into radio buttons because it's multiple values. So that's the more simple and yeah, good to check off. Let me see this, and get the data. So with that, thank you for attending this session on filtering, and I hope it was beneficial.